Hey folks, welcome back to another review right here on the Dice Tower with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're going to be taking a look at this little guy right here, King of Monster Island. Maybe you've heard of King of Tokyo. Well, think about King of Tokyo as a cooperative game. You heard it right, King of Tokyo cooperative style. Let's get down to the table and take a look, shall we? What you're thinking about here, the mindset that you should be having is you're playing King of Tokyo, but instead of attacking each other, you're attacking the big bad boss guy. And the big bad boss guy is represented by these things right here. And there are 3 different monsters that you can go for, and they go in ascending order, basically. So you can go with the easiest guy right here, the Crystal Dragon on the easiest side. He only has 15 hit points, and he's only rolling 5 dice. But you can take this guy and level him up, and now he's rolling 6 dice, and he's got 25 hit points. And then he's got all of these special abilities over here that he can unlock as he gains more stars. Or you can go with the Lithosaur. He has 6 dice and 25 hit points, but his special abilities are a little bit tougher, and when that gets easy for you, you flip him over, he gets a little bit more tough. But then you have the Lava Lord, and you can start him off with just 7 dice and 30 hit points and some pretty nasty special abilities. Or for the massive, you can start him off with 8 dice and 35 hit points with some rockin' special abilities. So there's literally 6 different levels of play on the game, and that's something that is pretty stinking cool. So what this game basically adds to a regular game of King of Tokyo is, of course, you all have a common enemy. But that common enemy also has little minions that are running around the island, making things difficult for the monsters and helping him. These little guys right here are builders, and they are going to basically aid the bad guy with building these crystals. And these crystals are going to take these places right here. Once we have 3 in each zone, then a monolith is going to go up there. And once you have 3 of these up there, that's one of the ways that you can lose the game. The other ways that you can lose the game if one of the monsters is at 0 health at the beginning of their turn. That can also be a loss factor. And then you can also lose if all of the minions are out of the bag and on the board. That's another way you can lose. And then finally, you can win if you have the boss's health down to 0. So there's one way to win, many ways to lose, just like in a normal cooperative game. So let's talk about some of the mechanisms. The main difference in this cooperative version of the game is that the boss is going to be rolling dice, and the boss has his own phase where he's going to be moving around the island, activating dice and activating his minions. You're going to roll all of the available dice, and available dice are basically just dice that are not already on the board. But before you roll those dice, you're going to check to see if any of the monsters' abilities are going to be activated before he moves. So this one right here, Mega Horns, before movement, deal 1 damage to the monsters in my zone with the most health. Well, he's over here alone. He doesn't have any monsters in his zone, so that doesn't happen. And now that we have checked his available powers and fired those off, we're now going to roll all available dice. So those go into the board just like this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check to see where the monster is going to move. So we look at the dice that are in his area and adjacent areas. Whichever one has the most dice, that's the one he's going to move to. In this particular case, there are 2 where he already is, so he's going to act as if he moved to this area, and then he's going to fire off the dice and the minions. Minions first. So this minion right here is just a little soldier, and he's going to do damage to any monsters that are in this area. There aren't any, so he doesn't actually have an effect right now. But then both of these dice will take effect, and there is 1 crystal and 1 draw a new minion. So these are taken off the board because they've been activated. We grab a new minion from the bag, which is another soldier, and then we're also going to place a new crystal in this spot right here. And that's the end of the boss's phase. Then we go to the heroes phase, or the monsters phase, where one of the monsters will be able to go, whichever one is deemed that they want to go first. So let's say that Pagura wants to go first, and they're going to take 6 of these dice. Now, the monster dice are a little bit different than King of Tokyo. You have a foot symbol in here now, which basically gives you 1 movement, or it provides 1 damage. It also has the regular claw that you're probably used to, and that does 2 damage. And then you also are probably savvy on what the heart does. You can heal 1 damage for that. And then you also have a lightning bolt, which will give you an energy cube. And then you also have something that's new, a wrench. And wrenches are able to be used to build these support craft that are out here that can help you do certain things during the course of the game. So, for example, if that one was here in this area while I'm doing my roll, I would be able to add a lightning bolt to my roll if I wanted to by flipping this over. But it's also going to give me an energy cube if I do that as well. But that's what the different dice do. So, what can he do? It's Yahtzee style rolling as per usual. So, we have a movement and a damage. We think we want to go ahead and use those. We have 2 of those. I don't need any health, so that's my first roll. Now I'm going to do my second roll, and I have a couple of stars. Oh, that's something I didn't go over. Stars actually lets you level up, and you can have these different support crews come and help you. So you've got the army, the ape monsters, the mad scientists, the metabots, the ninjas, and the media. And all of these things are basically support crews that will give each monster special abilities depending upon how many stars they have. So if you use a star, you can use 1 star to activate one of those people and bring them into your ally pool. Or you can also use a star to get rid of a die that is in your area. So those are the 2 things that you can use stars for. I think I'll keep 1 of those, and then I'm going to roll these 2 as my last roll, and we don't have much here. Now, I can't use this one. It doesn't do much good at all, except I can lock this die in one of these 3 areas, and if I do that, any future monster that's in here can use that die as part of their roll. So that's a cool thing. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I am going to use this and move 1 over here this way, and then I'm going to do 2 damage with this guy to knock out both of these fellas, and then I'm going to do 2 more damage to the actual boss himself. So that's important to note, that you do have to damage minions in the boss's area before you can do damage to the boss himself. And then I'm going to use that guy right there, and that's going to give me 1 star, which allows me to take 1 of these special abilities. I'm going to take the army, and the army would have given me +1, so I probably should have activated them first, which would have done an additional damage to the lithosaur here. And that would be the end of my turn. It would go into another boss's turn. Any dice that came off, he would basically damage anybody here. So I would be taking 2 damage here because I'm still in that area, and that's what he does. So I would take 2 damage, and then we would roll dice on the next person's turn. That goes there. And he's going to look to see how many dice are where. There's more dice over here. He comes over here, activate all of this, and then it would be the next person's turn, whomever it would be, usually clockwise order or something to that effect. But that's generally speaking how you play King of Monster Island, with the winning condition being knocking him out to 0. The losing conditions being 1 person is down to 0 when it begins their turn. All 3 of these are on the board. That's another losing condition. Or all of the minions are on the board. That's another way you can lose. So that's that for King of Monster Island. There isn't a whole lot of differences between this and King of Tokyo. If you know how to play King of Tokyo, there are very mild, very simple differences between King of Tokyo and King of Monster Island. There is, of course, the major difference that it's cooperative and not competitive. And there's only one way to win. Instead of getting a whole bunch of stars, you have to win by knocking out the boss monster. That's one of the cool things that I think is neat about the game. And using stars is just an ability that it just gives you the ability to do more things like getting more health or doing more damage during an attack, or being able to build more support ships, or being able to heal other people. Those are the kind of things that stars and these ally cards are going to be able to do. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with these different allies that really kind of switch up how the game works. And I think that's really neat. The monsters that come in the game are all pretty much, they're all new. But on top of that, they're all kind of what you would expect King of Tokyo to come up with. So I think that's pretty cool. So let's get to my pros and cons. My first pro, first and foremost, is that King of Tokyo is now a cooperative game. I think that's amazingly fun. Don't get me wrong, I love competitive King of Tokyo. I think it's a great game. We just had a greatly fun time playing a couple of games of King of Tokyo at Dice Tower East. So it's not that I did not enjoy competitive King of Tokyo. I just really love cooperative games. And the fact that now I can play one of my favorite dice games that are competitive, I can play it cooperatively, that's super cool. I really enjoy that. I think it's a great thing, and I think it was a logical progression in the universe, especially with the advent of all of these monster movies that have been coming out recently, and they're all kind of cooperating against some bigger monster. So it just makes sense. I think it's great that King of Tokyo is now cooperative with King of Monster Island. My second pro for the game is the new faces on the dice and how you use them. I love the fact that you can use wrenches now to build little support ships that are out in the bay around the island, or not the bay, but out in the ocean around the island, and they can help you, and you can activate them or refresh them. I think that was a great little addition for the dice. I also like the fact that the foot can be either movement or just 1 damage, and now the claws are 2 damage. I really like that change. It's a very subtle change, but I think it's a really cool thing that gives you that ability of moving around an island, something that hasn't been necessary with the King of Tokyo universe, because if you're either in Tokyo or you're out of Tokyo, or you're in New York, you're out of New York, or whatever, you get the idea there. I like that subtle change, and I think it's a really cool thing. I like stars, and I like how they have used stars in this game to not just mean points, but you're upgrading your monster and your ally, and you're making yourself a little bit more useful, a little bit more powerful over the game. It's not all about fame and points now. It's all about taking out the common threat, and I think that's a really cool thing. My third pro of the game was actually one of the losing conditions of the game, and that has to go with these spires, monoliths, and the little crystals that get put out by the red dice and all of that kind of stuff. So I guess we'll throw the monster dice into this pro as well, because frankly that is a losing condition. The more of these dice that get fired off, the worse it is for the monsters to take out the boss. So I think we'll throw all of that in here into one. But the losing condition is getting 3 of these guys out on the board. I think that's a really cool thing, because what these little crystals do is if you get 3 crystals in one area, that puts out one of these spires, which is bad. But I think even worse than that is that the more of these that come out, the fewer dice you can lock, because these spires take out those places where you can lock dice, and let somebody else use them later on. So I think that was a neat little balancing mechanism to make it difficult during the game to give you a reason to fight against those spires being built during the course of the game, and it also made it more difficult for you. It's a cool little tightrope act that they have here. So I like the losing conditions. I like how these red dice are working against you during the course of the game, but I also like how they've balanced that out by giving some of these dice faces the ability to take those dice out, which makes it harder for those loss conditions to be met. So I really like the new loss conditions and the new red dice. They're super fun. I like how these minions work. I like how there are 4 different kinds of minions. We didn't really talk much about them, but these cannon guys will deal, if they are activated, will deal 1 damage to all the monsters on the board. That's pretty nasty. And some of the abilities of the boss will basically make them do 2 damage to everybody when they fire off. So these guys are usually first in pecking order. These guys are pretty nasty too, because these are the builders and they're the ones that put out more of those spires. The little soldiers are just kind of annoying. They only do 1 damage to somebody that's in their area, but there's also abilities on the boss's sheets where you have to take these guys out first. So they're annoying, but they're also effective. And then you also have the shield guys, which I already kind of mentioned. They don't have any attack ability, but they take 3 damage to take out. The ninjas help in reducing that to just 1, but you have to take minions out before you can attack the boss, which makes the boss a little bit more powerful. You might look at him and say, well, 25 hit points with 5 people attacking you, that might not be very difficult at all. Au contraire. That's very hard because you have to do not just 25 hit points to him, you have to take out all of the minions that are in his area too. And so when you start rolling some of these double-faced minion dice, that's pretty stinking nasty. And so I think there's a great balance struck that makes a very simple game very challenging. Saved this for basically last because it is the it's the creme de la creme for this game, and that is the board and the table presence that the board has. It is a amalgamation of cardboard and plastic pieces, and it just works. I love the fact that these 2 plastic pieces combine to make this very formidable and yet very cool volcano right here in the middle of the board that doubles as your dice tower. I really love this. I just love little things like this that make the game pop, that make the game just come alive, gives it that 3D tear to it, and the artwork is about what you would or what you should be expecting from the King of Tokyo universe at this point. It's very thematic, it's very striking, it's very evocative, and it just makes the game super fun. The deck of energy cards, power cards. Now, I'm about to talk about my con, and this might be a little contradictory if, taken in hindsight. But one of the coolest things about this is that this deck is not just power cards. It also has good and bad. So here's the good ones, the green cards, and there are bad event cards. So in this deck are event cards that are either good for the monsters or bad for the monsters and good for the boss. And so when you are buying these, you have these come up and you fire them off and then you replace them. These are a really cool idea. I really liked the event cards in the deck. But, and I'm doing a little bit of foreshadowing here, I found that they don't come up as much as I would like them to because people don't buy energy cards. So here's my con. And this isn't necessarily a con per se. I don't think that it shouldn't be in the game. It's just kind of a disappointment more than anything else. They put a whole bunch of new energy cards in the game. And what I have found over the games that I've played is that they are largely overlooked, and that's a disappointment. And the reason they're largely overlooked, in my opinion, is because there's so much damage that we have to do to minions. We have to roll stars to get rid of dice. We have to do damage to the boss. We have to try to heal and stay alive. There's so many different things that we have to do. It sometimes feels like a waste to stop your roll with a bunch of lightning bolts and get a lot of energy and spend them on these cards. Now, I'm not saying that these cards are bad. They're good cards. It's just that while you're rolling dice, sometimes it feels like it seems like a second-class decision to roll energy or to try to keep energy to get some of these cards. I don't know how to get around it because there's so many things that we have to do on the board. This seems like something that, if I get to it, maybe, but even still, I might just lock those 2 dice and let somebody else do it. So, and that's what kind of makes this a disappointment that is in the con category, because I really have liked using these cards in the past, but in this one it seems even less of a viable choice while you're playing the game, and that could be why we're losing. But that's the way it feels, and so that's why they're here. I think they're cool. I think they're great. I just think they get overlooked. So all in all, I think I'm going to give King of Monster Island a whopping 9 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a great logical progression in the King of Tokyo universe. Of course, we need to start teaming up and going against the kaiju that are coming from the underworld. I think that's a great idea. It was a great thematic choice, and I think they implemented all of the right mechanisms to make it a very fun King of Tokyo-esque cooperative game. That's one of the cool things about it, and that's one of the reasons why I'm giving it such a high mark, because it still feels like King of Tokyo, but you're not fighting each other. It still feels like King of Tokyo. You're all teaming up against a big bad guy. This is probably one of my most enjoyed purchases, and one of those things where you're like, good job, you bought this game. I really enjoy this game a lot. Maybe I'm just kooky, maybe I'm kind of weird, but that's what I'm going to do. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. I really enjoyed it. Over on the flip side, that's 2 thumbs, way, way up. If you can find it in your budget and you like King of Tokyo, this would be well worth your time and energy and resources to go pick up. So that is my review for King of Monster Island. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.